Chapter 17. Touch. Hot as it is, the rest of the way home Charlie is aware of a chill up her back and along her shoulders. The cut on Coyote's nose is exactly the way she saw it. Did he really chase a pair of deer? Did he splash through a creek and leap at a deer who kicked him and got away? There is no doubt about the cut, about the blood on his nose. All this time she's been imagining things about Coyote she'd had no way to be sure whether what she sees in her mind is real or not. She only knows how real it has felt. This is different. She saw that cut, saw it happen in her mind before she saw it with her eyes. She wants to tell someone about this, but who can she tell? Her father won't believe her. He used to complain about how long her mother encouraged her fantasies of fairies in the woods. The sooner she knows the difference between what's real and what's not, the better. This is real, though. It is. She could tell Sarita, but she had no idea what Sarita would think about it. Besides, Sarita might tell Charlie's father. At home, she feeds Coyote, wishing that she could put some sort of medicine on his nose. The cut is crusting over, but it looks deep. It's possible that the fur won't grow back and he'll have a scar the rest of his life. It doesn't seem to bother him, though. He doesn't paw at it, doesn't shake his head as if it hurts. Or maybe he's had enough pain that he's used to it, like Charlie and her leg. Charlie goes to her room to change her clothes, her mind still reeling. She strips off her jeans and t-shirt, checks for ticks, drapes the clothes over a chair to dry out, and sits on her bed in her underwear. She closes her eyes. Can she make an image of Coyote now? Of course! She can see him perfectly clearly in her mind, lying under the dogwood. But he always goes there after breakfast if Sadie isn't around. This isn't what she did in the pine grove. Charlie shifts to Sadie. Lets a picture form in her mind of Sadie swimming across the lake, making splashes with her front paws. Clearly as she can see it, it isn't the same as the deer chasing either. She has seen Sadie do this so often that the image she is seeing in her mind now is ordinary memory. Even if she were to go outside right this minute and find Sadie coming up out of the water and shaking herself, it wouldn't prove anything. Sadie swims over at this time of day a lot. In the pine grove, she was just playing with the images, drifting. She wasn't making a real effort to see what Coyote was doing. Does that make a difference? Now it's like a test to see if she can do it again. Now there's something to prove. If Amy were here, Charlie thinks, and still her best friend, she could tell her. Amy would think it was cool. Weird, a little scary, but really, really cool. Charlie grins. Whether Amy would think that or not, she does. Definitely. Weird, a little scary, but really, really cool. The corner of her mother's book is sticking out from under the extra pillow. Her mother, that's who Charlie wants to tell about this. Colleen Morgan wouldn't refuse to believe her or tell her she's crazy, but Colleen Morgan isn't here, and she never will be. Charlie pulls the book out and finds the page with the fairy ring. There, scattered in the moss and pine needles in the middle of the circle of mushrooms, are the same white stones she saw today. Except for the mushrooms, the pine grove looks today the way it did when her mother was kneeling in it, taking the picture. Looking at it makes Charlie's throat hurt. She turns the page. The next photo is of Eagle Lake, taken from the dam on a soft gray morning, tendrils of silvery mist like whirlpools rising from the surface of the water. The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. Marcel Proust. New eyes. Like when she looked across the pine grove, she saw the strand of spiderweb. It occurs to Charlie that her mother saw the lake and the woods around it differently than anyone else who lives here. What she saw, she captured, and then she sent the images out into the world for other people to share. The next page is a single white wildflower, incredibly close up, with 5 petals arranged around a spray of golden dots. There is nothing else in the picture, just the flower against a dark background, green but unfocused. Nobody sees a flower, really. It is so small it takes time. We haven't time, and to see takes time, like to have a friend takes time. Georgia O'Keeffe. And then there is the beaver again. To understand any living thing, you must creep within and feel the beating of its heart. Is that what her mother could do? Did she connect with the animals spirit to spirit? Is that why she never needed to make a blind to get her photographs? Charlie's throat is hurting again. She closes the book and puts it back. Then she gets dressed and goes outside. Sadie and Coyote are chasing each other around the azaleas. Sadie is wet from the swimming in the lake. Of course she is. It doesn't mean a thing. A few hours later, when Charlie has finished a cheese sandwich that she shared with the dogs, Coyote coming close enough to take his share from her hand, the dogs are playing again. They roll on their backs next to each other, biting at each other's ears and paws whenever they get close enough. Charlie goes over and sits down next to Sadie, expecting Coyote to leap up and move away. He doesn't. The 2 dogs keep snapping at each other, gently, not really trying to connect, and Charlie rubs Sadie's stomach. After a minute, she reaches over Sadie and gingerly lays her hand on Coyote's chest. He looks up at her, and their eyes lock. He has registered this touch, knows it is her hand on his chest. Good dog, she thinks. Holding her breath, she begins to rub. Coyote wriggles in the grass just the way Sadie was doing a moment ago. After a while, he rolls onto his side, away from her. She rubs behind his ears and then runs her hand through the honey gold fur down his back to the base of his tail. His fur is wavy and a little wiry, not as soft as Sadie's. If she had ointment to put on the cut on his nose, she could do it now. He is so relaxed. His tail thumps on the ground once, twice, and then Sadie jumps up and knocks Charlie sideways. The moment's gone. The two dogs take off again, Coyote ducking in among the azaleas to leap out at Sadie as she runs past. Charlie sits there, her hand tingling. She has touched Coyote, petted him. 40 days it has taken her, longer than she could ever have guessed when she got the idea to invite Coyote to live with them. People take this for granted, she thinks, this petting of dogs, as if this is what dogs are for. She has touched Coyote, rubbed his ears, like Jane Goodall grooming a wild chimpanzee for the first time. Charlie knows now how that must have felt, what it must have meant. Chapter 18. Regular Dog. The next day, Charlie wakes with the memory of Coyote's fur under her hand and hurries to dress, wondering now that Coyote has allowed her to pet him, what will be different today. But there has been no breakthrough, no miraculous change. All through the walk and the feeding, Coyote stays well out of her reach, seeming, if anything, even more wary than usual. It is Sunday. Sadie, probably chained while the Davises are at church, doesn't swim across the lake. Without her, Coyote refuses to come close enough even to take a piece of liver from Charlie's hand. It is as if yesterday never happened. When Sarita gets back from church, Charlie is sitting near tears at the breakfast table in the lake room. Her father is alternating between watching a Sunday morning news program and reading the newspaper. "What's wrong?" Sarita asks the moment she sees the look on Charlie's face. "Nothin'," Charlie says. "Some nothin'." Sarita sets to work in the kitchen, putting out the ingredients for the waffles she always fixes for Sunday brunch. She pours a glass of lemonade and sets it on the counter that separates the kitchen from the lake room. Maybe this'll help. Surprisingly, it does. As she drinks, Charlie watches one squirrel chase another, leaping from branch to branch outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. Nothing can take away what happened yesterday, she thinks. Maybe the connection scared Coyote, and he needs to back off a little. Like the first time she got up the nerve to dive off the swim platform. It was days and days before she dared do it again. But a few weeks later, diving was the most natural thing in the world. Over brunch, Charlie tells her father about petting Coyote. "Terrific! It's time to get him a collar on him," he says, "and take him to a vet. I'd have insisted on that from the start, but I didn't really expect him to stick around." "He'll stay," Charlie says. "This is his territory now." But her heart sank as the thought of putting a collar on him, leashing him, forcing him into a car to take him to a vet. It'll feel to him, she thinks, like the men catching him and putting him in the shed. I don't see how we can get him to a vet, though. "Sorry, kiddo, there's no choice." Her father takes another waffle from the platter Sarita has brought to the table. "If you're going to keep this dog, he has to have his shots. Distemper, rabies, especially rabies. There's a law, and who knows what else he might need. I doubt he's been neutered, for instance. We'll have to have that done, too." "There's a sign for a mobile vet on the road by the police academy," Sarita says. "You could call." "Good idea," Paul Morgan says. "You call and make the arrangements, Charlie, and I'll pay for it." He sighs. Another of the truths of life. There is no such thing as a free dog. Much as Charlie likes waffles, she has lost her appetite. How is she going to get a collar on Coyote? And if she does, what will happen when she turns him over to a vet? A person he doesn't know who will stick needles in him. At least shots can be given at home. Neutering will mean taking him to the vet's office. Car, strange place, operation, pain, car. Worse than being locked in a shed. Much worse. It's too horrible to think about. Coyote will never trust her again. He'll probably take off and never come back. When Charlie is helping in the kitchen later, Sarita pats her arm. "That dog's life is so much better than he ever had before, he's not going to leave just because you put a collar on him." "I don't even know if I can put a collar on him." "Ha!" Sarita says nothing more. She just goes on rinsing dishes and putting them in the dishwasher, humming to herself. Maybe, Charlie thinks, the mobile vet has tranquilizer darts like the one you use on wild animals. Coyote wouldn't even remember what had happened to him when he woke up. Of course, to use a tranquilizer dart, the vet would have to be able to shoot him with it. If a stranger drives up to the house, Coyote will be gone in less time than it takes the vet to get out of the car. By Wednesday, Coyote is taking liver from her hand, whether Sadie is around or not. Charlie takes him to a piece several times in the morning and several more in the afternoon. She just calls "Liver," and wherever he is, he comes to get it. If Sadie is there, of course, she has to give some to her, too. But Sarita has filled the freezer with enough to feed an army of dogs. Charlie is hoping that when Coyote's used to coming for liver, she'll be able to get the collar on him. Unfortunately, he doesn't come close enough. He stands back and takes the liver the way he takes food from his bowl, leaning forward, snatching it, and jumping back so fast she can't possibly even touch him, let alone catch him. She tries using Sadie. If Sadie doesn't come over on her own, Charlie goes down to the dock and calls across the lake for her. Then, when the dogs are playing, Charlie joins them. Coyote lets her get close enough to pet him. It's clear that he's doing it on purpose. He lets her take burrs off his coat, and she is finally able to pull the snarls and tangles out of his tail. Eventually, he even lets her take hold of the ruff around his neck, exactly what she has to do to put the collar on him. Except when she has the collar. The minute she comes out of the house with the collar in her hand, he scoots away and stays away, no matter what. She tries putting the collar in her pocket before she comes out. It makes no difference. If she has the collar, even if Coyote can't see it, he stays away. She can play with Sadie all she wants. He just stands and watches. Then, if she leaves the collar inside, he comes with Sadie and lets Charlie pet him. She can't figure out how he knows when she has it. Sarita says maybe he smells it. So Charlie rubs it all over with liver. It doesn't help. Finally, she enlists Sarita. You be ready with the collar in the house, and when I'm close enough to get hold of him, bring it out to me. Even that doesn't work. Charlie might as well have been waving it around in the air and telling him she's going to put it on him. He refuses to come near her. She decides that the dog is reading her mind. It's the only explanation that makes sense. Even when she doesn't have the collar, if she's planning to catch him, he knows it. Uncanny, her father says, though he doesn't believe in psychic dogs. He's getting impatient. One way or another, you need to get control of that dog. It is then that Charlie decides to tell Coyote what is going on. Maybe the trouble is that she's trying to trick him. Somehow he knows that's what she's doing, and Coyote doesn't like to be tricked. That is how she ends up sitting on a boulder at the shallow end of the lake during their walk that misty Thursday morning, the 45th day of the taming, talking to Coyote. Ever since the day at the pine grove, she has managed to find a place to sit during their morning walk, on a stump or a fallen tree or a boulder. Coyote goes off and does whatever it is he does, and she waits for him to come back. She doesn't get bored by this wait the way she used to in the evenings over by the Haywards. What she does now is listen. There are more things to hear in the woods than she ever would have believed. Sometimes she thinks she can hear the sap moving in the trees, beetles chewing their way through the bark. Once a movement catches her eye, and she looks up in time to see an owl, its huge wings moving slowly, silently far off between the trees. It makes no sound, but she can almost feel the currents of the air from its wings. Occasionally, when she's relaxed enough, she plays with visualizing what Coyote's doing. She sees him chase a squirrel or pounce into the leaves trying to catch whatever small thing, a mouse or a vole, maybe. He has heard rustling beneath. The more she does this, the clearer her images become. Sometimes, instead of watching him, it almost seems that she is right there with him, doing what he is doing. She can feel the pounding of his feet against the ground as he runs, the brush of leaves and grass against his face. From time to time, she catches a whiff of something she doesn't recognize, smells that seem to start her heart racing. But as she tries too hard at this imagining, the images and feelings slip away and she's back to herself, sitting in the woods alone and waiting. This morning, when Coyote comes back to get the treats she usually gives him from her waste pack, she doesn't give them to him right away. He stands for a while, looking at her with an expression that seems to ask, what the heck is she waiting for? After a while, he sits. Finally, with a big, obvious sigh, he lies down with his chin on his paws, looking out at the water. Here's the thing, Charlie says to him. His ears flick back toward her. Dogs who live with people wear collars. It shows that they have a home and a family that cares about them. Sadie has one, and Bo and Pandy and Jasmine and Bernie, all the dogs at Eagle Lake. All except you. I promised you food and shelter, and I'm doing my best to keep my promise. But you need to wear a collar. I won't use it to make you do stuff you don't want to do. Coyote still looks out at the lake, but his ears twitch. Charlie realizes that isn't exactly the truth. Well, sometimes I will, but only if it's absolutely necessary and only if it's for your own good. Like when a doctor comes to see you. There's a law and there's nothing I can do about it. You need a shot, a couple of shots, to keep you from getting sick. And there are some other things we need to do if you're going to be safe and healthy to live with us the way dogs live with people. You want to be a regular dog, don't you? Coyote doesn't move. Charlie wonders if she's crazy telling him all this. So when Sadie comes over today, I'm going to bring the collar outside, and I need you to let me put it on you, okay, Coyote? Coyote gets up and stretches, front legs and then back. He shakes himself and looks up at her, his black-brown eyes gleaming in his golden face, the blue tip of his tongue visible between his teeth. Yeah, I know, she says. You want your liver. She takes a piece of liver from her waist pack. Are you going to let me put the collar on you? His eyes are focused on the liver, his tail wagging. I'm counting that wag as a promise. When Sadie swims over later that day, Charlie tells her that she needs help. She explains about the collar, the shots. If Coyote can read human minds, maybe Sadie can too. Then she goes inside and gets the green nylon collar she chose for him so long ago. Holding it where both dogs can see it, she calls Sadie to her, rubs her ears, and pats her. Then she takes hold of Sadie's collar. See, she says to Coyote, who is standing just out of reach. This is hers. She holds up the green one. This is yours. We'll get a tag for it that has your name and phone number on it, just like Sadie has. She lets go of Sadie's collar and rubs her ears some more. Coyote comes closer, close enough to touch. Slowly, Charlie moves her hand from Sadie to Coyote and rubs his ears. Then she takes a handful of his neck ruff and holds him while she puts the collar around his neck. His ears go back against his head and his tail droops, but he stands still while she buckles it on, making sure she can put 2 fingers between the collar and his neck. Then she lets him go, and he backs quickly away, shaking his head. Figuring it is better to leave him alone to get used to it, Charlie goes inside. Sarita is standing at the dining room window. They stand together, watching Sadie circle Coyote, begging him to play. Moments later, collar forgotten, Coyote is chasing Sadie around the yard.